everybody, welcome back to Parent Cafe Live. So we are going to be talking about self-regulation, and so why that's important for us as the parents to be self-regulated and how that helps and impacts our child's regulation, and things we can do to help that. So first I want to ask you, what does it look like when you are unregulated? What does it look like when you're struggling emotionally with something? Are you angry? Are you sad? Do you withdraw? Do you spout off whatever's at the top of your brain and your mouth? Do you throw tantrums? Because that's what I call mine. I call mine adult tantrums. I've gotten much better at them, but occasionally they happen. And I have to own that and apologize to my son because I don't allow his tantrums, so therefore I can't allow my tantrums. It has been a huge learning curve for me to not have tantrums. And they look like a lot of things. Sometimes they're short little like instant bursts of kind of anger directed at somebody like my child. And so he's learned to do that in the reverse role towards me. And it's language that I do not appreciate. And I've said that before our kids pick up our language and we'll spin them around and tell us exactly what we said. What does it look like for your body? Is it hard to gain control? Do you cry? I sometimes cry. Is that okay? Is it okay that sometimes we're not regulated? Yes, we're humans and we learn to how to cope, right? But we have to give ourselves healthy coping skills. Sometimes we need a break before we can engage positively, right? Some things are just so overwhelming or such big stressors, or we have so many things that are triggering us and activating us. Like, what do you do with all of that? Right, so I'm honoring that us as adults can have these overwhelming surges of emotions and not know where to put it, don't know what to do with it. So why do we expect our kids to be able to just control it? I'm guilty of this, thinking, gosh, can you just pull it together, right? They can't. And a huge part of that is because as we develop, and I keep talking about this, like this is your emotional brain back here, and this is your problem-solving brain up here. And it takes a long time until we're 25, 26, 27 before that's fully developed. So in those early years, they're definitely not there. As they become more self-aware and they're big kids, it's still an emotional center that's leading them. And they're becoming aware of a sense of self, so there's a little more defiance. And then you go to teens, and then there's all the hormones that complicate all of those feelings and make them more, and they have more complex feelings. You know, as we develop and our brain develops, we gain more emotions and more awareness of the world around us and have different reactions. So the coolest thing I've learned from this book right here, Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline, is that I have to be self-regulated, especially if I'm going to interact with my child and try to regulate him. So if I'm angry that he's done something and I come at him with just anger, he's probably going to be scared and be an emotional mess. Or if he's scared and upset already and then I come in upset at something he's done, or something that's happened to him, that's not helpful to him. So I have to come in as calm as I can, collected as I can, because I do have the critical thinking part of my brain fully developed, and I can control my responses. That's the only thing as humans we have control over, is how we respond to things. But it takes time and practice in order to do that, to regulate our emotional brain and be able to come forth and use this part of our brain. And some of us it's harder than others, and there's some things that we haven't developed that skill yet, that coping skill to help navigate some of those negative things that come up. And that's okay. Like I can't help you through all of those things, but what you can do is recognize. And I think if you have something you're not sure how to deal with, in my therapy sessions, they call containering it. So you put it in like a container until you can deal with it. When you're working with your kid, you don't always have time to deal with all the stuff you've got going on, right? And that it's really hard. It's one of the hardest things about being a parent is to have all your own stuff and trying to help regulate your child and make them happy and healthy, right? Provide for them, keep them safe, teach them the things they need to learn, support their learning if they're in school, support how they can have healthy relationships. We want better for our kids than we had. You know, there's all these complex things that go into it. But if we can regulate ourselves enough to help support our child through their emotional needs, because that's our role as a parent, is to support our child's need, we can't really have it the other way around. They will eventually learn, and as they're adults, it becomes more on an equal level. But as we're raising our kids, we are the parent. That is our role. And our child is the child, and they're learning from us. Like, it's whether you want it that way or not, that's just the way our brains have been designed. That's how biologically we've evolved. Like, we just kind of got to roll with it, right? They have needs that need to be met, and we are the caretaker, the caregiver, and we have to provide that the best way we know how. So, the best way I know how is to practice regulating, which is cool because it's all the things that they try to teach your kids. So, if your child's in preschool or going to kindergarten or anything, they have all of these, they call it social emotional learning skills. And there's different programming where like kids can identify where they're at as far as their moods go. And the teachers can move that based on the choices they've made through the day. And there's a lot of reflection about bad choices, what that did, what that made everybody feel like, and what's a better choice for the next time. And there's so much reflection on that. And I don't know if it's because I have a boy that I see more of that, or if it's just I have a more challenging, determined, and strong-willed child, which I think it's a combination of. You work through this stuff a lot more, and I feel like I'm working on it at an earlier age, so we'll be better grounded as we get older. But I think through each phase of a child's life cycle, they're all going to hit harder times than others. So with the development of my son and his personality and all of that, it's just budding early. And so we're struggling more with that at this point. So since he's been little, we've tried calming techniques. So there's like the Tucker the Turtle technique. There's so many books about, there's Breathe Like a Bear, which is an adorable book. It's all these different animals and showing you different ways to breathe. So if you guys are creating a safe space, it's really good to have books and or like visuals as well. So Conscious Discipline uses the star breathing technique. So it's smile, take a deep breath, and relax. So they have like these little cards with it, and they have all these little cute posters you can download from their website. A lot of times there's different types of breathing that you do with like rhythmic motions on a chart or something. They have like a little pinwheel. This is a Conscious Discipline pen/pinwheel thing. And so it's cute and calming for like your little safe space. And when they're breathing, they would be trying to blow this. So it gives them something like physical to see that breath moving. So having those. So I have all these cool decks of cards for mindfulness. And even though we're grounding to self-regulate and we're giving the kids the skills, it's going to look a little different. But you can instill this kind of stuff throughout the day to practice, because the more we practice, the easier it is to do this. So life is just stressful, right? So it's good to take a few timeouts through the day and provide yourself with some mindfulness. And remember, we talked about the 9 meaningful moments of a day. Like, these are things you could do during those moments with your child just to get grounded together and have that meaningful connection. So you can do, this one is just cool. It's a deck of cards. I have lots of decks of cards. And kindness and calm and like the mind castle. So these ones are from Barefoot Books that I just got. And they're gorgeously illustrated, and you could try different ones, and they always have tips on how to use the whole deck. They also have this really cool one called Yoga Pretzels. And there's all sorts of different brands that carry these. I just happen to have these, so I was showing you guys. But there's fun things you can do with your kids and grown-ups. So you can do these things as a family. They're really pretty. They have a bumblebee breath, like super cute, a snake breath. You can find things with your favorite animal. There's lots of stuff online. It's not like copyrighted by any one individual. It's cool because there's so many things you can pick from that you can find something that your child would find relatable, which I really like. So in order to create like a safe zone, a safe space, and regulate, often we become unregulated when there's a conflict and we need some sort of resolution, right? So how many of you do timeouts? Because kids done something naughty. Typically we send them to timeout because we want them to think about their choices, but usually they're upset, so they're not really thinking about it. Or we've sent them there because we need a timeout. So I typically say, Mom needs a timeout to calm down before we discuss what you've done and how we're going to handle it. It really depends on the circumstance. But when they're really young, and you're going to see this in the schools and any classroom, whether that be childcare or schools, they're implementing these sort of things. So they have like a safe space or a safe zone. And so within that is age appropriate like comforts. And then usually there's some toys, calm down books, visuals, the charts of things, little breathing tools. Sometimes they'll put like different fidgets in there, teddy bears. It just kind of depends on the age of that classroom and area. And you can build these at home too. So if you have a little baby, you wouldn't be putting stuffed animals and stuff in there, but you could practice like active calming with yourself and your baby when they're upset. So this was really frustrating for me. Was like my child was high needs for his entire infancy. Just was angry about everything. Like unless you were feeding and holding him, he wasn't happy. He hated to be changed. He hated to be bathed. He hated his diaper changes. Like there was just never ending upsetness. And it made me really anxious, and I wish I hadn't, because I think he picked up on it so much. But I mean, that is what it is. I can't go back and change it. I've learned now how to do some things. So at any point, it's never too late. I just want you guys all to know that. And it's all about what works for your guys' family. So you still might want to do timeouts for different things. I'm not going to tell you how to parent. I'm just going to give you parenting options that hopefully will help support connection and, a safe haven between you and your child. And they understand that you're a safe space, safe person. And then they learn the roles between you, parent and child, and they learn that you're the authoritative figure, but they don't have to be scared of you for you to be the authoritative figure. They just need to respect you, right? And so we do have to give them respect. They're a human, right? So we find ways to show them and model respect, because they're going to do that back to us. And it's not like we're purposely disrespecting our children, but we tend to puff up and let our egos kind of go sometimes. And I'm saying this from my own personal experience, and that it comes out differently for everybody. But that's where you get that power struggle between you and your kid. And boy, do I know about that. So creating a safe space for them to go. So where does your child usually go when they're upset? What do they do? What calms them? Do they go crawl under a blanket? Do they have a favorite stuffed animal? Do they like to be held? And it needs to be a safe space. So if you're really angry and you can't get regulated yet, that safe space should definitely not be you. So if it is a baby, that regulating and active calming is great on you, but it can't happen until you're actually calm. So their safe space would be like their crib or maybe their swing or something, but it needs to be somewhere where they're in physically safe as well. As they get older, a lot of times they like little cozy cubbies and stuff. So you kind of help create a little nook for them. And as they're older and can understand, you can have like choice boards and stuff. So conscious discipline is like amazing at all the different things they have, and they have lots of resources available, but probably not super practical for at home. You're not going to have like 20 charts on your little wall about things. So do what works well for you. And if you guys are struggling with something specific, maybe having some choices like about like cleaning the room, or I don't know, eating their food versus throwing it on the floor type of thing, coloring on walls or destroying books, like you could have choices which would be agreed, and you help them reflect afterwards. I have a friend who once everybody's calm, because she sends her kids to like their room and their calm down space, and then she has them draw a picture. So there's the green picture and the red picture, and they draw the red picture first. So they're like, okay, what did I do? All right, how could this have been better? And they allow them to identify that. And since her little kids can't write, she does it through drawing, and then they explain the drawing, and it's a really cool tool. And I've used it a few times with my son, and it worked pretty well. So he's at a point where we just have a lot of reflection, especially with stuff that goes on through his school day. So pick what works for you as far as active calming. So the first thing you need to do before we can start thinking critically and start problem solving or choosing different choices, we're going to practice calming. And over time, they'll learn to practice this calming before there's a conflict or before you have to engage in whatever's happening, so they can start problem solving ahead of time. So sometimes these conflicts are just an emotional overload, just a tantrum. Like there's nothing that really happened. They're just upset about it. Or like they're not in trouble or anything, but they just really didn't like whatever that happened. They had to eat broccoli, or that it was time for bed, or that it was time to share a toy, like any of those things. So practice your active calming. So a easy one is just practicing belly breathing. So you just take 3 deep breaths, and you take them with them and count them in and count them out. And you breathe in your nose and out your mouth. And it's amazing. Like I have to do this when I start getting tense. I found that if I take a minute just to take 3 deep breaths, like I can kind of reset myself a little bit to at least like get out of the little funk of where my brain's wanting to stay in the emotional side. Then you need to remind yourself and remind them that you're okay. You're in a safe space. This is why it's so important to give them a safe space, so they start to understand that they have some control over that. So in a little person's world, and we're all big, like they need their little safe space. Like we kind of dominate the world. We're all like towering over them by like 4 feet, right? So giving them their own little space to be safe in is really good. And it helps like reduce the stimuli going on too. So that helps this limbic part of the brain, the safety part of the brain, from like trying to take over for your flight or flight. And then it allows the emotional response, and then the emotional response is getting calm, and then we can start thinking critically. And so we're teaching their brain to start rerouting, and that's awesome. That's what our brains are supposed to do. It just takes a long time and a lot of practice, and that's okay. And another thing is to think positively. So if we're frustrated with somebody, it's like perspective building. So if we can see something from the other person's angle or not want them harmed, conscious discipline calls it a wishing well, and you're putting positivity out into the world, basically. And if you're in conflict with somebody else, and this is really important through therapy, like if you have a conflict with somebody and you're angry at them, you can start to see it like, well, you can't control that, and you don't want to be angry at them, and maybe some of that's out of their control, and I wish them well. Like I want good things for them. I love them. Like it's okay that happened. They're my parent, and I did something wrong, and so I love my parent, and that's okay that this is happening, and now we need to talk. Things like that. If they had to share something and they're like, I don't like Jimmy, Now they're like, oh, well, Jimmy's my friend, so it's okay to share with him. So that sort of thing. We're changing that frame of our brain from the emotional side, wanting to drive, and that anger, and then getting stuck on a loop. So when we bring it up here and then we want to wish well and send positivity out, we're challenging our emotional brain. So I want you guys to practice that. I want you to practice active calming with yourself and your child. And probably start with yourself, because it's the best place to start. Because I don't know about you, but kids are like overwhelming sometimes. All of their needs and all of their energy. Like, I wish I had an ounce of the energy my child has. Like, I don't even understand how he has so much, because I'm exhausted by the end of the day and he's still running hot laps, and it's amazing and wonderful. But it's hard, right? And no matter how much we love our kids, we have hard days, and that's okay. So how do we actively calm ourselves so we can delight and enjoy in our kids a little more? It's going to make any of those conflicts go a little smoother and be less contentious, and we challenge our negative emotional side of things with wanting to put the positivity out there. And we don't hang on to it as much. And it's easier to stay calm. And it's easier to meet our kid where they're at and meet their needs and see their needs and honor those needs, instead of it being about us and the emotional state we're in. So that's why kids are so self-centered, because they're in that emotional centered part of their brain. And we can get that way too. Like, we all have the same kinds of brains, right? We're human brains. And we have to teach them to see beyond, to become really self-aware and then aware of the surroundings and the world around them. And they grow and they build that, and that's how our brains work. So sometimes we get into a rut in our emotional brain, and that comes from anything from trauma to exhaustion to life in general. And it's not a bad thing. It's there for a reason. But wouldn't it be nice to just have a little more peace in your home, to feel more at peace when you are struggling with something with your child? So I hope these tools helped. Please, if you really want to use a safe space, build one, create one, find some cool breathing techniques and little tools that your child would like. Have them be a part of making it with you. I've seen some people, they create like the totes and they have like a little safe space boat. I've heard some people call it Paradise Island in a classroom. Like, there's tons of different things, and it doesn't have to look the same way for anybody. Or maybe you don't like the way it turned out, or it's not working and you want to, revise it a little bit. That's okay too. So don't forget, there's lots of posters and charts and cool breathing techniques. I always tell you guys about Teachers Pay Teachers and Etsy, of course, and I'm sure there's plenty of others. These cool things came from Barefoot Books. I just found out about this company, and everything is beautiful. I'm not sure if Usborne Books has any of these, but I have plenty of other ones for different ages. There's ones for teens. Here's Strategies for Children. This one is PESI Publishing and Media, but I found this on Amazon. And there's different card decks. You can make your own if you're crafty. So just do what works for you guys. So I hope you all find a little bit of peace, a little bit of safety, and a little bit more connectedness together this week. And tune back into our channel for upcoming uploads, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.